Right, this is buying a longboard. I mean, I've been doing this since 1962, helping people buy the right longboard. There are really three categories in modern longboarding. First is full retro surfing, where guys want to do exactly what they were doing in the 60s, which is basically for waves only this big and fast and down the line, and that's heavy logs and nice walking, elegant turns, a lot of body weight in the turns. So that's classic retro. Then there's performance longboarding, where guys surf a lot of the tail and got big lip bangs and big arcs and stuff. The young guys do that extremely well, and it's bags of fun. Then the third category is purely recreational. Getting out there, catching lots of waves, lots of laughs, having fun. Now those three categories basically cover longboarding today. There is, of course, it's a huge culture in mid-lengths, when you go down a foot or two, into the sevens, 7-footers, etc., and low eights, but that's a whole other world. Okay. Well, now the hazards with buying a longboard are two, really. One, you've got to have your body mass and experience assessed for you, or at least assisted in that, by a good salesman who understands the sport, understands what's available on the global scale, really, and matching that right board to you. And the second is that if you shop in a place that's got a limited range, they're likely to palm off that board that's been sitting there for a while and tell you some fanciful story. You've got to shop where there's a big stock of boards to pick up, to feel, to take your choice, be guided by a well-educated salesman. Online, boards look pretty, they sound great, but when you see them in the flesh, they can let you down. So, you know, I'm a strong advocate for coming into the shop. Check things online, go for it. Get a lot of knowledge online, but go to a well-stocked surf shop and ask a trusted salesperson to match you to the board that's going to help you progress.
Perfect.
Well, just a couple of tips on fins, because that can be confusing. Single fins go great in a straight line. They're unreal, especially in small logging waves. A basic single gives you tremendous down the line drive and momentum. But when you start to go vertical, that's when you've got to plug some side lights in. You've got to get into 2+1s. And that's because the outside fins do a lot of work when you're driving up waves and a lot of work when you're off the top and driving down. So when waves have got to get over this big before they become effectual, basically. But there's no harm in having a 2+1 in small mushy waves as well. There's no harm in it. But the single will give you that V8 feel with dooga 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 dooga, and it'll just keep chugging. The wave power is something to consider. Boards for soft waves, either big and with a lot of momentum, like a retro board, like a heavy 60s log is great because they've got the glide power and they'll carry you over dead bits. But a modern board with double concaves and 2+1 gives you an up high planing feeling. So those two solutions to mushiness are both valid. You know, the big heavy log, the bit of glide, but something with tri-fins and double concaves will give you the pop, so you can pop and move around to pump the juice out. So if an agile surfer, double concaves, 3 fins. If you're a cruiser, stick to the log, get the glide. A lot of people ask about volume. They come in to buy a board and they think they've got to match their body weight to a certain volume. Well, it's fantasy. Archimedes' principle says that you've got to have something underwater to displace water to create volume, to create buoyancy. Buoyancy is the result of this submersing area, space, mass. You've got to submerse it. So if you put a 5.5-inch thick board domed on the deck and the top 2 inches are sticking out of the water, it's doing zip. It's giving you volume when you say, okay, that's 80 litres. But it's not floating you. You've got to be submerged to float you. So, without getting too bogged down on it, that you've got to have like a wider board will float you far better than a narrow one, because you just added inches that submerged. So thickness is not necessarily the answer to flotation. Plus, add in things like the correct rocker. I mean, the most efficient rockers will flow the water under the board and bring it back to the surface as you pass through. It's the Inuit canoe principle, where you don't drag a ball of water behind you as you paddle. So the rocker can help you paddle nicely. Pop, as we were talking about before, double concaves, multiple fins, they get you up on top of the water as soon as you start moving the board. So that's where volume disappears. Once you're up and planing, volume's not an issue at all. It's only while you're in displacement mode, paddling to catch a wave. So there are so many myths involved with, I need a certain amount of literage to float me around. It's not true. All these other factors come into it. You need to speak to a good salesman.